Hello friend, how are you? Welcome to Tripan Study Center. Today we are going to do the chapter of social science and highlighting each and every point of it. Let's see what is our topic today. Uprising of 1857 cases and separations and consequences. There is a most important topic here. The uprising of 1857, the causes, separations and consequences here. The revolt of 1857 started on 10th May when the company as the Indian soldiers era Meerut rebelled. As called to the Sapporo Mutiny by the British, it is now recognized as the first war of independence against the British ruler. Indian soldiers killed their European officer and marched to about Delhi. And they entered to the Red Fort and they proclaimed their as and powerless. Mughal Empire Bahadur Shah Zafar as the Empire of India. And this rebellion was a major anti-colonial movement against their aggressive imperialist policy of British. In fact, it was an economical, political, and social struggle against the British rule. And this served an outburst of the anger and discontent, shocked the foundation of colonial rule in the large part of India. We will now study the causes of the dissatisfactions among the Indian people which made their rebels against their British rule. The first of all point here arrive are political cases. The political cases here, the nature of colonial expansion through the annexations become a major source of discontent among the Indian ruler. The British want to be acquire a land and collect as much wealth for England as they could be. There is a policy of annexations called to the doctrines of lapse and subsidiaries. And the lines led to a number of independent kingdoms began annexed to be British Empire. And these were a state that were enjoyed to British protection, but their ruler has died without leaving. A nature here their horns, as a result their adopted son could now no longer legal inherit their property or receive the pension which was granted to them by the British. In this way, Lord Dalhousie annexed there is a Maratha state of Satara as a Nagpur, and Jhansi and several there are minor kingdoms. On the death of the Bajirao II, the pension granted to him was abolished and the claim of his adopted son Nana Shah to receive this pension was denied to him. And this interference by the East India Company was disliked by many Indian rulers. Before the policy of the trans of the lapse, the Indian ruler had a right to be adopted and there to his the throne, even if there was a childless, but now they had to be take periods with a consent from the British. Here show the Indian map. There is a most important for here. The Maruti, Delhi, Bareilly, Lucknow, Fizabad, Kanpur and Jhansi. There is a most important spot of revolt. That's important here in the map. The policy organization affected not only the rulers but affected all those who were dependent upon them, namely soldiers, craft people, and even the nobles. That's important here. Even there is traditional scholarship to the prestige or classes lost the Pentagon and which there is where is getting from this ruler. Thousands of Jamidar, noble and pilgrims is lost control over their land and its revenues. The organization of the Awadh on the ground of misgovernment was also resented by their Nawab who was loyal to be a British, and no alternative job were provided to the people who lost their jobs and when the British look over Awadh. Even the peasant had to pay of higher taxes and additional land revenue. The continued interference of the British in the basic way of the living, traditional belief and value of norms was even there is the masses as the threat of their religions. The British administration gradually became arrogant and the wolf between them and the people within. That is important. The next point here, economical cases. There is the most important point here. Another important case of the revolt was the disruptions of the traditional Indian economy, and it is a subordinate of the British economy. The British had come to trade with India but soon decided to exploit and impoverish the country, and they tried to take away as much wealth and raw material from here and they could. The British keep high posts and salaries for themselves. They use a political control to increase their trade as well as export and import of foreign goods. All men were used to be drain India of their wealth. Indian economics now suffer under the British policy. Since there is a blockade against the interest of Indian trade and industry, India is a handicraft completely a collapse. There is a India is a handicraft completely collapsed, and that a craft man who received a royal patronage were impoverished when the state were annexed. They could not be complete with the British factor made a product where machines were used. It made India into an excellent consumer of British good and a rich supply of raw material for the industry in England. The British sold the cheap machine made cloth in India which destroyed the Indian cottage industries. There is important, there is a destroyer for their Indian cottage industry. It also left a million of craftsmen unemployed. The British also sent raw material to England for the factories there, and this left a little for the Indian weavers. The British also imposed heavier duty on Indian made goods. Now there could be reaps of huge profit as there was no competition for their goods. Thus the British drained to Indian here of wealth and here natural resources. And what are the measures the British take to be exploit India? To buy raw materials and sell their finished goods, they are introduced stamp ships and railways. The railways is open as a vast market to the British and facilitated their export of Indian raw materials abroad. The railways connected the raw material producing area with the exporting sport. As a result, British goods afforded their Indian market. But you know that the railways is a play an important role in the national awakening of the country too. They let a people an idea come closer together and something that the British had never anticipated. In 1853, Dalhousie opened their first telegraph line from Calcutta to Agra, and they also introduced their postal service to India. Since land was the major source of revenue from them, the British thought of the various means to get a revenue from land. The colonial policy of intensifying land revenue demand led to a large number of peasants losing their land to revenue farmer, trader and money lenders. And this was done through the Royatwari and Mahavari system. There is this time the two systems established here, Ratwaris and Mahavari system. The permanent settlement of Bengal, Bihar, Orissa did not recognize their heredity or right of peasant on the land. On the other hand, if you there fail to pay a 11th of the entire produce, their property could be sold off. Their property is sold off. To prevent the situation, the peasants often borrow the money from their money lender at the high rate of interest, and sometimes they even sold their property to be a money lender. Even the official harshed the peasant who dared not seek justice at the court from a fear of further harassment. The new class of Zamindar, that were is created by the British become their political allies. The supporter them in a time of need and acted as a buffer between the British and the people. Some them even supported the British against the freedom movement. The economical decline of peasantries and artisans was reflected in the 12 major and numerous minor famines from 1770 to 1857. All this factory helped to be spread on anti-British feeling and which ultimately is culminated in the revolt of 1857. There is important economical value for a revolt of 1857. The next year, social and religious cases. There is important. The British were not very sensitive to the feeling of vast mass of Indian people. Social reform against sati, female infanticide, and with the remarriage and education of women made many people unhappy with an objective to be convert to people the Christian missionaries and open school and colleges. They also need a population which was educated and they are more than enough to be buy their goods, but not enough to prove to the intermediate to British interest. It's made to people believe that the government was in a coalition with their missionaries to eradicate their religions and convert them to the Christianity. And their passing of Act is a 21 of the 1850 invalid to the convert the Christianity inherit to the ancestral and property. The new law and the natural interpret as a concessions of the Christian and convert within the further create an exit and fear among the people. The religious is a sentiment of the supporters were hot in 1806 in the Madras presidency. The Hindus were asked to be remove their caste mark from their forehead, and the Muslims were asked them trim their beards. Thought the sapists of the uprising and put down. It was evident that the visits neither understood nor a care of the Indian soldier. The loyalty of the spouses was further undermined by the container military reform which is required them to serve overseas. And this coexist there is religious feeling. They had on the average vision as overseas service as a travel across the ocean mean loss of caste for them. The next year, discontent in the army. The soldier in the East India Company as an army come from a peasant families which were deeply affected by the government's policy. Indian soldiers were not given to post above that is a sub doors and some spouses is wanted special batal allowance if you send hours of duty and sometimes where is the paid but most of the time they were not. They therefore started to distrusted their officer and this instance contribute in their own way to the revolt of 1857. The soldiers had other grievances too, and they were paid salaries less than their English counterpart. As a result, the morals of Indian sepoy was very low. On the other hand, when the soldier refused to be cross the black water, and that is ocean and sea, because the religious forbade it is the British were is a truthless of them. The next point here immediately causes. There is the most important here. The strong resentment was rising among the Indian, and they were is beaten only for an occasion of revolt. The stage was all set. Only a spark was needed to be set it on fire. Introduction of the Gazette of crisis in the 1857 provided that fire. The government decided to replace the old fascinoid musket is brown bags by the infield rifle. Infield rifle, the loading process of infield rifle involved to the bring of the cartridge to the mouth and beaten off the top. There was a rumors among the spoils of January 1857, and that the grey seed cartilages is containing that fat of cow and pig. The cow is scared there is a Hindus, and the pig is for hasten to be the Muslim. The spoils where is a now is a convinced that introduction of grazed is a cutting ways was a deliberate and attempt that defile Hindu and Muslim religious and their religious feeling. And this spark of the revolt of Sepoys on 29th March 1857. The next point here, the causes of the revolt here. The Sipo is called the Mughal Pandey. There is a Sipo is called Mangal Pandey was the first soldier who opening this swell order, and he killed two English officers at the Bra Covers near Calcutta on 29 March 1857, and he was arrested and tried to executed. The regiment of Bracopos was disbanded. The new news of Mangal Pandey very soon and this other part of country and resulted in the open revolts. Here come to picture, there is the most important person here, Mangal Pandey. Mangal Pandey is the first person in the revolt of 1857 and he was a killer too of British officer and arrested the British police, and there is the most important for 1857 revolt. The most decisive uprising occurring at the Meerut where 85 sepoys of their cavalry and regiment where is sentenced to be 2 to 10 year imprisonment for the refusing to use a grace is a cartage, and their very next day on the 10 May is 1857 and three regiments broke into the open mutiny. There is a kill to British officers and broke open the persons and to release their commanders. They began to march toward to Delhi, and there is were joined by the local infantry and common people. The rebels is a capture of Delhi and kill many British officers, and they declare the Mughal Empire Bahadur Shah as the Empire of India. From Delhi to revolt spread to other places. In a Kanpur, Nana Sahib was declared to the Peshawar. His troops were commanded by Tatya Topia. Tatya Topia is the most important person, and Azimullah. Azimullah is also important on this period time. Here the Lucknow Begum Hazrat Mahal was assassinated by the Malabis Ahmadullah. In a Jhansi, Rani Lakshmi Bai and the Ara Kunwar Singh. Kunwar Singh is led to revolt, and Khan Bahadur Khan, and there is the leader of Bareilly. There is the most important revolt on this period time, a different part, different revolt. Here show the picture, there is the most important Hazrat Mahal. There is the most important person is a female. There take a part of the revolt of 1857. The loss of Delhi greatly lowered the prestige of British. To recover their loss and prestige, they took help to the loyal forces for Punjab. There is this time the loyal forces for the Punjab, assailed to the lasted 4 months, and Delhi was finally recaptured on 10th September 1857. It took another 10 months of fighting before the Governor General Lord Canning. There is a Governor General on this time, Lord Canning, and could be proclaimed to the end of the mutiny on 8th July 1858. There is some important, there is the end of proclaim. A steep resistance has been offered to the British force by the heroics cheers are the rebellions Rani Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi and Tatya Tope and Kuvar Singh. Rani Lakshmi Bai lead to be rebels ranks. Mounted on the horseback, she boldly is a face their British cavalry and but her horse is a stampede and the field she was killed. According to British commander in a chief Sir Hugh he was the best and bravest military leader of the rebels. And Kubar Singh was killed in another battle in Bihar. And Tatya Tope was captured well and he was asleep. He was hanged after a trial. And this was the end of the heroics trios and the rebellion was finally surprised by the British. The all empire Bahadur Shah along with his two sons was taken prisoner. After the trials he was deported to the Rangoon where he died in 1862 at the age of 87. His sons were shot dead at the Delhi without a trial. He must be now look into the causes for the failure of revolts. The next year, nature of revolt. There is a nature of revolt here. A big debate surrounded revolt of 1857. The British historians describe the event of 1857 to 1858 as the immunity war the supposed and it should be a pharaohs. There is a mention there here that is there were many surprising by the supposes is a period to 1857. One example is the Valores is the mentioning of July 1806, where Indian suppose has revolted against the East India companies and garrisons, and nevertheless, order was restored very soon, and the revolt did not go beyond of the confine of the continent. What if you look closely into the fact of 1857, you will see the difference. The revolt was started by the supposed but was joined to the large number of the civilians population. The participation of the peasant and artisan made the revolt is spirit and the popular event. In some area, the common people revolted even before the Sepus, and all this is so that it was a clear popular revolt. It was characterized by the Hindu-Muslim unity. The unity between different religions also existed. Rebels in one part of country helped people fighting in other areas. The revolt should be seen as the first nationalist struggle in India from independent from the foreign rules. You will realize that the revolt of 1857 was not one moment but only there is a many. There was or there is realized the revolt of 1857 was not one moment but many. It was not a class revolt either. The peasants did not be rebels against the landlords. They only direct attack against two money lendings and grand leaders are the representative of the British Indian government. But their policy strongly influenced their way as a particular reasons and was going to react. The revolt in the Awadh as well as other region was a popular in that it's a pretended to people as well and was carried out by them. Talukdar and the peasant is the Awadh is a fought together against a common foe. But there is no doubt that the revolt of 1857 was the first time that a soldier of Indian army extracted from different communities. There is a Hindu, Muslim, landlord, peasant had come together in their oppositions to be British. It also provided their necessary foundation for their later successful anti-colonial struggle against the British.